Hi, I'm Amaya and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to talk about the different ways K-pop groups try to market to an international audience. So I'm not going to talk about international groups. Groups that are made for different markets like Cat's Eye, I'm not talking about them, or XG, I'm not talking about any of those. We might also talk about some of the implications that come with these different ways to market. So the first one is foreign language songs. This can sometimes be controversial because your Korean audience might not want to listen to a song in a different language, and then your foreign audience is going to want lyrics that they can understand and that makes sense. I also saw a video from this fan talking about how K-pop fans don't want to see the English version of songs when we're in concerts. We want to hear the original version.
Like a good amount of the time the translations are awkward, and that's weird because I know that there is somebody that is fluent in English in that songwriting room. The grammar's awkward, the placement for the words are awkward. I've been listening to the original Korean of these songs for fucking years. Why would we want anything else? I'm talking about when they make songs in Korean first or Japanese first and then they come out with the English version.
But my opinion is if I like the English version, then I would prefer to hear it. So for example, Bad Boy by Red Velvet or Nerdy by If I like the English version of those songs, so I wouldn't mind if they performed it. The next concert I'm going to is SF9, and if they show up with some specially recorded English version of Good Guy, I'm not gonna like that because I don't know that song. I know the original version. Collaborations also fall into this category. 17, Twice, and BTS members do this all the time. Lotto, Jack Harlow, Megan Thee Stallion. I can't name every person that's collaborated with a K-pop artist, but it's a lengthy and diverse list of names. And they all aren't Western. For example, Stray Kids collaborated with Japanese and Thai artists Sky High and Millie on some of their songs. I think it's interesting too to see when they're not just collaborating with people from the US, because that's the majority of the collaborations that I see. I mean, the US is the biggest music market in the world, so of course it makes sense. But I also think it's interesting too with what kind of music these groups make. Like when an American person thinks of BTS, they're gonna think of the songs that they know, like Dynamite and Butter. But a BTS fan isn't gonna think of that. They might think of their last song, Run. Or they might think of Idol. And those songs sound completely different from what songs they made for the international fans. When you make international music, do you want to branch out, or are you just making something for your fans? Next is foreign language albums. I think it's a really big commitment to make a foreign language album, especially if you don't already have a lot of international fans. Some smaller groups will just make foreign language songs, but putting out an album is going to be a big investment. Typically, K-pop groups will promote in Japan since it's a big market for K-pop, but when it comes to other countries like the US, they'll just make a couple of singles. Some groups do English albums, but they're more like greatest hits albums that only have their best performing songs or only have their title tracks. For example, ITZY. Even groups that tour the US all the time like Twice and 17 haven't released English albums yet. I just learned that BTS doesn't even have an English album. I just assumed that they did because they have 3 major international hits with Butter, Dynamite, and Permission to Dance. I guess they don't think it's worth it to release an English album when they can become popular worldwide from releasing music in Korean, and the performance of those 3 singles is good enough to not warrant an entire album. And I think this is also a big gamble because the average person isn't going to listen to your whole album. So if you are just releasing English music to appeal to an international audience, then it makes sense to just do singles because they wouldn't think to listen to your album anyway. I also think it's interesting what language an idol's solo is in. Typically, English-speaking idols will make music in English, like I.M from Monsta X, Jaehyun, and 10 from NCT. The same with Japanese idols like Misamo and Yuta. Next is foreign members and bilingual members. This is one of the easiest ways to promote to an international audience. If you're making a group of 5, you already need 5 people, so you might as well pick someone who speaks another language just to appeal to an international audience. Just think about how Twice's Japanese line led them to be a huge success in Japan, or how groups with English-speaking members can have someone take the lead during overseas concerts and kind of eliminate the need for a translator. From my experience, most K-pop groups have at least one member who speaks a foreign language, either because they are non-Korean or because they grew up in another country. Like Chanty from Lapilis, although I'm not sure if she's still in that group, and Kiho and Seoul from P1 Harmony. Right now is a really interesting time because we're seeing more localized groups for different countries, like Girl Set, and Team, Wavy, and Dear Alice, and Hybe India just launched a few weeks ago, and K-pop groups are also trying to spread overseas. So at the same time that K-pop groups want to become internationally known, K-pop companies are making groups for specific countries. So I wonder how this will change in a few years, if K-pop will become less of a global force due to these localized groups that they're competing with, or if localized groups will push more people to become K-pop fans. Like if someone becomes a fan of Cat's Eye in the US, and then that inspires them to start listening to other groups from Hybe, and then they become a K-pop fan in general. Or if people who like K-pop now get localized groups for their country with people that look like them, who are making music in their language, and then it kind of eliminates their want to listen to K-pop when they have a version of it at home. Everyone knows that music shows are a great way to promote your songs, but now I'm seeing more K-pop groups performing on shows overseas. Every time 17 has a comeback, I'm seeing them on the Kelly Clarkson show. TXT has performed at Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve. Recently, groups have been going on shows like Good Morning America and also local news shows, especially ones like in New York. I've also seen Twice on Stephen Colbert's show, but that was a couple of years ago. And I remember BTS and NCT going on late night shows back in like 2017. But I haven't noticed this as much anymore, either because people are less interested in late night shows now, or K-pop groups just don't see the need in going on them. One issue that I do notice with these international shows is kind of a translation thing, where sometimes they'll just have the group like struggle through communicating because they don't have a translator, or the members who speak English will just do all of the talking and the other members never get to say anything. On international shows, I much prefer it when they just get a translator so we can actually hear from everyone in the group. Any type of online content that's in a foreign language, I will count that as well under international shows. Next is concerts/tours. Touring is interesting because you already need an established audience in order for you to tour in another country. I have a separate video talking about K-pop tours, which I'll link in the description, but I think the touring bubble has kind of burst for the US at least. We're seeing groups running more sales just to get their tickets sold. Rise did a sale for their tickets. P1 Harmony did sales for the members' birthdays, and they brought Ampersand 1, which is their brother group, to open for them. Stacey also has a lot of tickets available for their tour, and Soojin completely canceled her US tour. These are just a few updates on the ones that I mentioned in that original video. So touring, I feel like, is kind of difficult because you never know if your audience is going to show up. I honestly think like P1 Harmony has a large audience, and Rise does too. Rise, I feel like their issue might be because Seunghan isn't in the group anymore, and American fans were kind of upset about that. With P1 Harmony, it might be because they come here every year, so some people might not feel the need to see them every time they come around when there's a lot of competition from other groups who it's their first time coming here or they don't come here often. Next is festivals/conventions. So if a group is not ready to do a tour internationally, you'll for sure catch them at some festival or a convention like KCON. M Countdown also goes to different countries every year. I think they've been in Mexico and they've been in France as well. We see K-pop groups performing at Lollapalooza, headlining at Coachella, so performing at festivals in different countries outside of just traveling with KCON. This is a lot easier to do because you don't need to fill seats on your own when you're just one of several groups on the lineup. Next is foreign language projects. So this is not an album or a song. This is TV, movies, things like that. This is a growing way to market. Several years ago, Monsta X was on an episode of We Bare Bears. A new live action example is the TV show Kpopped, which combines Western performers and K-pop groups, and in each episode they do a rendition of the Western artist's song with a K-pop twist. This appealed to both K-pop fans and fans of the Western artists. The show aired on Apple TV Plus and was an English language program. For another example, as we all know, K-pop Demon Hunters was the biggest movie of the summer. Twice sang Takedown for the end credits of the movie, and their song Strategy was featured during the movie. I would expect other groups to start doing things like this more often. This is the last category, guys. This is brand deals. I almost forgot to include this category. TXT had a deal with General Mills where Each cereal box had a different member's face on it, and then one box was the entire group, and each one of them came with a standee. K-pop group themed McDonald's meals are still going on. You guys can let me know in the comment section what you think of this, but I'm reading a lot of negative feedback from fans boycotting McDonald's due to the genocide in Palestine, but clearly someone is buying this stuff for McDonald's to keep paying K-pop groups for licensing. So I think things like this are really interesting when we come to how K-pop groups are marketed. Like, for example, I've been seeing Mark from NCT getting criticized for this a lot recently. There was also a BTS meal announced just last month. I don't know, maybe the criticism is just in the English-speaking world of K-pop fans and not these other major countries that listen to K-pop. Blackpink did a jersey deal with the NBA. I was kind of disappointed because I didn't see smaller teams on there. I feel like if you're going to do a deal, it should include every single team in the NBA. Which one of these methods do you think is the most effective? Having a member who speaks a foreign language makes all of these other things a lot easier. So I would probably say that that's the most effective way to market to an international audience. It's also going to make people feel kind of seen in a way, like someone is relatable to them that's in the group. I guess it also depends on how big of a market for K-pop exists in the country where they speak the language that person speaks. But that's getting a little too deep for today's video. I can do a video on any one of these topics, going more in depth. Let me know what you guys think. You can leave other video ideas in the comments down below. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!